Clarity and Support. I'm your host, Brian. Listen as I chat with authors and leaders in the DNA world about the family and personal impacts of DNA testing. You'll hear news stories, unique perspectives, find out about books, websites, organizations, other podcasts for those involved in the world of DNA. Please be sensitive to younger listeners as the conversations can get intense at times. This is a production of Watershed DNA. Learn more at watersheddna.com. Welcome, Maggy, to the DNA Clarity and Support podcast. I'm very excited to have you join me today.
Thank you. I'm excited too.
So I've known you for quite a number of years now because you were one of the first people who was brave enough to post a guest blog post on the watersheddna.com blog. And you talked about your experience of discovering that you were an NPE, a person that makes a not parent expected discovery after doing a DNA test. And you wrote a blog post and then a follow-up blog post a couple of years later. And for listeners who are not yet familiar with your story, who haven't gone to the blog and read your story yet, how many years has it been now since you made your discovery?
It has been 12 and a half years.
12 and a half.
12 and a half years since my life completely changed.
And that half year matters, right?
It does matter.
Because you remember, I bet you remember the exact date. You remember the
August the 10th. Yes, I do.
Everyone remembers that because of how life-changing that discovery is. And your discovery came from doing a consumer DNA test. Right?
Yes, on 23andMe.
23andMe. So tell me a little bit about your discovery, like how you figured out what your DNA test was telling you.
That's funny. I did it out on a lark. A friend of mine posted about it and I thought, oh, that sounds like fun. So I did it and talked to my sister into doing it because I wanted to compare. I saw that we could compare our DNA. And then I also talked to my brother into doing it so we could do further comparisons since he was a male and we were females. And I thought that would help us get more information about our father's side. So one day I'm doing comparisons and I compare myself to my sister and look at it. That's cool. I compare myself to my brother and look at it. That's cool. And I thought, oh, look, I could compare them to each other. And I compared them to each other and it looked completely different. And I remember Googling at the time, what does it mean when I compare DNA and my chart looks black and their chart looks blue, which was how you differentiated at the time. And it said the blue means you're full siblings and the black means you're half siblings. And I was like, what?
So and Google.
Google told me. Yeah. And then I looked up my ethnicity and I saw that I was half Jewish. And that was it's like, that's no way. And of course, my brain just would not accept that the reality of the fact that half means it's happening right now. It happened in your generation. You know, I was like, I called up my sister and I said, hey, we're half Jewish. And she's like, no, we're not. I'm like, yeah, we are. I'm looking at it right now. It must have been way back when. And she knew immediately and I didn't. And she told me later, she's like, I was just going to wait to let you figure it out on your own. I didn't want to shock you, you know? So that's basically, you know, it was probably an hour later. I called her back and I said, oh my God, I just realized. And she said, yeah. I said, and I heard you say Dr. Horn. She went, oh, Dr. Horn. And I heard you say that. And now explain that to me. So that's how I found out.
So it was right away. Well, within an hour, you would say, of like realizing or talking to your sister. It was within an hour.
Right. Because he was the only I was born in 1959. In 1958, we lived in a tiny town of Canute, Oklahoma. And there was only one Jewish family who lived in town, and it was our family doctor. So.
Is your sister an older sister or a younger?
Yeah, she's 12 years older than me.
Older than you. Mm-hmm. And then what about your brother?
He's 8.5 years older than me. So I was the baby.
Baby of the family.
Mm-hmm.
So your discovery of learning that the dad that you had always known as dad was not your dad, and then almost immediately figuring out who was dad. I know you've written about that in your blog post. So I'm not going to put words into your mouth, but could you say a little bit more? about what that was like to immediately, because some people, they discover that their dad's not their dad, and then it takes them a while.
Well, I think in a way I was lucky because my birth certificate dad had passed away when I was 3 years old. And so, as emotionally connected as I was to him, because I desperately wanted to know him, at the same time, it was like, oh, well, at least he's not still alive and I have to, let him know this kind of thing. And then secondly, it was like a lot of things clicked into place. Why did this guy always call my mother every year? I talked to him so many times, handing the phone to my mom because I was the one that always answered, teenagers are. I was always the one that answered the phone. So it was just kind of like, oh, okay, now I get why he was calling all the time. He was checking on me.
So he knew.
Yeah, he knew.
Your mom knew.
Yeah.
Do you think your dad who raised you also knew?
I'm pretty sure he did because all my life I heard stories about my grandfather saying that he had died of a broken heart.
Meaning your father.
Yes.
Your grandfather said your own father died of a broken heart.
My birth certificate father. He had died of a broken heart, And my mother had 7 siblings and, sisters who were very close to her. And there were little things that we've come through later going, oh, that's why Aunt Pauline said that. That's why Aunt Florence said that. And
so things fell into place.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've actually heard that a lot from people I've worked with, not just people who are NPE, but also the bio dads and siblings. And it's just like the pieces fall into place.
They really do.
Back, things make sense.
The weird thing was, there was in our family album, which I inherited when my mom died, there was pictures of Dr. Horn's, of my half siblings, in our photo album. We always wondered why we're there. Never bothered to take the pictures out and look at the back. And if I had, I would have known, I think.
Talk about that. What was on the back of these photos? These are your half siblings?
Yeah.
There was genetic half siblings.
My genetic half siblings, right. My genetic father had written notes to my mom on the back, asking how I was. And in one of them, he said, I bet she's as beautiful as her. I can't remember how he put it, but he asked something. And he put in parentheses, I mean, you and Marianne. Which why would he have to put that? I think he said it as her sisters, or, I bet she's as beautiful as her sisters. I mean, you and Marianne, or whatever, something like that, and that was like, gosh, if I'd only read that, I would have certainly asked my mother, what does he mean by this? Why did he have to put that in parentheses? And I think if she'd been confronted, I think she probably would have told me.
You do?
Yeah, I do. I think there were several times I look back on where she just almost told me, but didn't.
So you've written a lot about your experience discovering you were an NPE. And I wondered if you could describe the writing process for you, because it feels like there's so many different directions you could go with writing about your discovery. How do you decide in the moment what you're going to write about?
I have to frame that with a quick story. When I was getting my master's degree in English, rhetoric, literacy, and composition, I had a class with the head of the department, head of the English department, who I had known for many years. And the assignment was, tell me about your writing process. And it was the first week of school he assigned this. And man, I struggled. I tried so hard to write that paper and I could not. I had to go to him the day before it was due and say, I can't do this. Can you give me an extension? I'm not going to go through this to tell you each time he gave me an extension, because he gave me one every week until the end of the semester, because I just could not do it. And finally he said, you have to turn it in on finals day or you're going to fail the course. So I sat down. Ultimately, long story short, I realized that I don't write like other people. I don't do outlines. I don't do storyboards. I don't think about topics the way other people do. I do it all in my head. And before I ever put down a word, I've got it all worked out in my head to some degree, even if I don't know it consciously. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So you've essentially written what you want to say.
Right. So I think to answer your question, how I picked that topic was, it was the one that was bothering me the most. It was the one that just had ripped my heart out was that I had been this person that had invested thousands of dollars in ancestry.com to do our family tree, and had even made up, like a month before I found out, I had a book bound and given it to everybody in my family of my birth certificate father's family. And everybody was so excited. And then boom, you're not even related to those people.
You were the family genealogist.
Yes.
Sounds like.
Yeah.
And you were the one that found out that the book wasn't about you anymore.
Right.
You had an entirely new book.
Yeah. Yeah. It broke my heart. It broke my heart on so many levels, because really the family that I was the closest to, even though we were really nothing alike, was my dad's family. And it still is. I'm still very close to them. So that was a very hard thing to accept, not to mention the fact that my whole history that I had built up in my head was not even, American settlers back in pioneer days. Well, on one side, yeah, but on the other side, Holocaust survivors who escaped Nazi Germany, so it was mind blowing.
Yeah. It's a completely different family history to weave into your understanding of yourself.
Right. I had to completely reorganize my thoughts about me.
Yeah. And it sounds like writing for you is a big part of that.
Oh, it's everything. Yeah. I'm a professional writer, so I'm not good speaking orally, as you might be able to tell, but I'm great being able to express myself in writing. And so I do that for myself, because a lot of times I clarify things it's self-therapy. I clarify things for myself by writing about it.
Well, I will say you are a great speaker one-to-one. And I've also seen you in small group settings, and you're a great speaker one to a small group. So I think you don't give yourself as much credit as maybe you should. But
maybe I'm just not as comfortable with it.
That's it. I can relate. It's hard sometimes to be in front of a group, especially people you don't know.
Right.
You're not sure how your message is going to hit.
It's funny, since I'm someone who's taught high school and college, so I've talked in front of many large groups, but I was never comfortable once with it. I would have preferred to do it in writing.
Understood. And you don't have to be a professional writer to write about your NPE experience. Would you agree?
True. Oh, absolutely true. I just think that for a lot of people who are discovering this and facing with the same difficulties that I was faced with, the writing and blogging and just diary, having a diary, getting your thoughts out is so helpful. And it's equally helpful to communicate with other people who are going through the same thing, because when you're in a bubble and, sometimes it's just non-productive, even if you're writing or whatever, talking with other people really helps a lot. And I learned that through you.
That is what I want people to take away from anytime they come and visit the Watershed website or listen to a podcast, is to know, like, you are not alone.
Absolutely.
Because I feel like so many people, when they first make this discovery, whether they are the NPE or they're the bio dad or they're a sibling, everyone at the very start thinks that they're the only one who's gone through that. And it's once you find community and once you find other people with not exactly the same story, but a story similar enough to yours and describing the same emotions and experience, that's where the healing comes in. To
That's
know that
exactly right.
There's not anything wrong with you. Like, what you're feeling is what we would expect. It's
perfectly normal.
Grief.
Yeah.
Grief. It's grief in all of its different stages, and perfectly normal.
And I think I don't think a lot of people have looked into the statistics of how many people that this has affected. It's a huge percentage of people, especially in my age group, who are in.
Can I number dump a little bit?
Sure.
Number dumping? Okay. And this is only because I'm really close to this research. I'm part of a research team right now. We're studying families that one person is the NPE, and we're interviewing the NPE, but then we're also interviewing the family members around the NPE. The siblings that they were raised with, the siblings that they met because they now have genetic relations to a different family. And what we have found out, so let's take just the past 10 years. Over 40 million people did an at-home DNA test in the past 10 or so years. And the rate of an NPE discovery from doing one of these tests is around 3%, possibly closer to 4%. There's even more people that discover that they have an unexpected sibling. So there are more siblings than there are NPEs.
Interesting.
There are even more cousins than there are siblings than there are NPEs, which if you think about how big families grow with the grandparent generation and then the number of cousins, it makes sense that you're more likely to discover a surprise cousin than a surprise sibling.
Right. Yes.
But we're talking like millions of people. Like millions of people have been through this experience. And there's some media coverage about it, but not enough to really get the sense of how broadly reaching it is.
And I've read statistics that said it up to 1 in 6 people have been affected by it somehow.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It's huge numbers. And even if there are fewer DNA tests being ordered, there are more situations of NPE in various ways. So a lot of, if you think of the donor conceived population, there's still some parents that are deciding not to disclose that their child is donor conceived.
Yes.
So there's still situations of NPE for children born today. So
that's a shame. I understand it, but that's a shame.
Yeah. And I'm grateful for people like you who are willing to share about your experience publicly, because I think if parents hear the stories and the professionals that are supporting the parents as they make decisions about disclosure, to hear from the perspective of the child, who they can't speak for themselves right now if they're children. So you're really being the voice of the children and infants and people that are young today. And if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have the voice of the people most impacted.
Truth. Yeah.
So before we talked today, I asked you to go back and reread your 2 blog posts that you had written for the Watershed blog. And I was curious to hear your response to reading your own words from the past. And that was this has been 5 years ago, right? You wrote these.
I wrote the first one 12 years ago, and then I wrote the second one 8 years after that. So it's been about 4 years. Identity is still a big deal for me. As a matter of fact, I'm framing a book in my head right now to write about that, because that wasn't my only. I just lost both of my dogs within a month of each other, and they had been ill for a long time. And so I was a dog nurse for many years. And in the middle of losing one and then losing the other, I lost my job of 14 years to a layoff. And that had been my identity, and dog nurse had been my identity. And all of a sudden, those things are not there. So I'm reframing my identity again, not on as big a scale as I was before, but it has clarified a lot of things about how important identity is to us. And I think there's a good book there. So I'm in the process of doing that. But what has changed? One of the big important lessons that I've learned is that nothing is static. And that's an important lesson that I think all people who are discovering this in the very beginning need to understand. If there is a sibling who doesn't want to meet you, or a biological father who says, I'm good and I don't need to meet you, or whatever, nothing is set in stone, and feelings change often. They don't just change once or twice. They change often. And so you not only have to be prepared for that, but you have to look forward to that, and not just think that what is said at the beginning is that and just, leave it. Leave yourself open. Be expecting. I have one sibling that we discovered that, my father was quite randy, put it that way. But
wait, so there's more than one of you?
Oh yeah, there's more than one of us. I have another brother, and he doesn't want to have anything to do with all of us until his mother passes away. And until his father I'm sure has already passed away, but he never wanted him to know. And I completely understand where he's coming from. He was very interested in finding out about the genetics of it because I lost a niece to cystic fibrosis. And so it's very important to know things like that, which is another reason why getting a DNA test is very important and trying to connect with your family if you have one, because I found out all sorts of things that I wouldn't have known otherwise that have been very important to know. So,
yeah, medical history. I know we've talked about that.
Huge. Yeah, that's huge.
I don't want to derail us because I think this is a really important topic that you're talking about right now, is like understanding that things can always change.
Yes.
And hold out hope.
Yeah, that's very, very important. And I see that again and again on social media where, someone has just discovered and they've just had their heart broken by a response from a new sibling or, a biological father. And I always reach out to those people and say, hey, just, understand that their feelings may change through time. They may not, but they can change. And also it's important to know that people who are accepting it first can pull back later on. And that does happen because they find out truths that they're not happy about finding out, or, wrong assumptions are made, or they find out things that they didn't know and they don't want to know you, and things just happen. So it's just important to understand that things change.
I hear you. And I agree. I think that, correct me if this is wrong, because I've not personally been through an NPE discovery. So my experience is from my life experiences. Whether it's somebody you've known your whole life or somebody you've just met, relationships change over time.
Absolutely.
And that's true with people that you reach out to because you do a DNA test and find a genetic connection. That relationship changes over time. It can also impact the relationships with the people you've always known your whole life.
Yes, it can. And not always in a good way. I'm not as close to my brother and sister that I grew up with as I was before. And I don't think I can't say it's me, but maybe it is. I don't know why that's true, but it is true. And I hate it, but, and there may be other factors, politics or whatever, because that's the
Yeah,
one.
I was going to ask, does that change trace back to 12 and a half years ago? Or does that change trace back to there have been some major political events that have happened?
I think it's probably closer to the second.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It still doesn't make it easier.
No, but, and I think the NPE status does affect it a little bit. My brother always insists on calling me his half sister, no matter how many times we say that doesn't really exist for us, for him it does. So
for him, that there's some significance to that label.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, that happens. It's an unpleasant reality sometimes.
So if the Maggy of today, let's say you could time travel to 12 and a half years ago and go back, and you and Maggy of 12 and a half years ago and Maggy of today are in the same room together, what would you tell her?
Be strong. Be prepared. Things are going to change. I know you're heartbroken, but you're going to find out some great things. You're going to meet some great people who are going to become so important to your life. I have cousins and siblings. My brother David I'm so close to him and I adore him so much. And my cousin Sari, and I could just name them all. I adore them so much. And I'm so happy that they're part of my life. And I would have never known them. And we are exactly alike. I mean, that was the first big discovery when I first met all of them in person that made us all so happy was, oh my gosh, we think alike, we act alike, we look alike, and we have the same talents and skills. My two sisters are writers. My brother that we discovered that doesn't want to have anything to do with us is a journalist. I'm a writer. And, Yeah.
Or they're in your DNA there somewhere.
And music. I mean, I've always been a musician. My son is an absolutely fantastic musician. We never had any musicians or people who could even hold a tune in a bucket on my mom's side of the family, but everybody on my father's side are musicians. Surprise. That's where you got it from. And the other thing I would tell myself is, you think it's all about nurture? Honey, it's not. Nature is extremely important. Matter of fact, for me, it was the big one. I mean, it's not 50-50. It was like 80-20, nature. So,
yeah, I know. Well, this is the challenge of genetics research is how do we assign percentage numbers to what is nature and what is nurture?
I think it's just like DNA. It happens randomly. For some, nurture may be more important. For others, nature may be. Some others, it may be equal. But for me, it was more nature.
So you mentioned to your brother, it's really important to him to specify that you're a half sibling. What are your theories on why that's important to him?
On the one hand, he was very close to my mother. As she aged, he was the one that lived in town with her and took care of her. He's very loyal to her. On the other hand, when his dad died when he was 11 years old, we lived half a block from the cemetery. And that child rode his little bike out to his father's grave every day for years until we moved from that town. And he would stay out there for hours. So it hurts him. I think it hurt him initially to find out that our mother cheated on his father. And so it's a lot about loyalty, I think, is all mixed up in that for him.
Yeah, that gave me chills and is making me a little bit teary because just imagining an 11-year-old boy grieving his dad.
It's hard.
And then that pull of loyalty he still feels as an adult.
Right.
And I'm glad I asked you that. I'm sorry if it was emotional for you.
No. It's okay.
But I hope it helps you feel like less hurt by his.
Oh, it does. It does. Yeah.
It sounds like it wasn't about you.
No, it's not about me at all. Yeah. It was about him.
That's so hard.
Yeah.
Does the topic still come up at any? Do you still have family gatherings with your brother?
We do. And no, not really. I think it's avoided really as much as possible. We don't talk about it. I get together with my sister more often and she asks about, how David is, because he's the one that I'm the closest to. And, she's actually friends with a lot of them on Facebook. And so, but no, it really doesn't come up anymore.
Have there been any interactions between your newfound siblings from your paternal side and the siblings that you grew up with?
Only on Facebook. I think, they're just thought of as friends now. And so the comments go back and forth when things are posted, and things like that. But no, I know that my sister has talked about traveling to California and while out there sometime meeting my brother, which, she would like to do. And I hope she does get to do that sometimes. I think that would be really awesome for her and for them.
Do you think she will notice the same family resemblance that you know?
I don't think she can miss it. I really don't think she can miss it. It's so funny because I didn't look like her and my brother at all when we were growing up. And I was always told it was because I looked like my mom. But no, and the real truth is that I look like my dad. And I look like my Uncle Saul's children more than I look like his children because their mother had dark hair like my birth certificate father did. So they all have dark hair. But man, if you look at a picture of me and Saul's kids, I could be their sister, so.
I know those genes, they're strong crazy. Sometimes.
We have a picture of the entire family and we all have a lazy right eye, and it's so funny. It's like, oh, there it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. There it is.
Yeah, it's amazing. I've heard some people who do a DNA test and then start searching the family tree of their matches and come across a picture and are just struck by the family resemblance.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that even more so than the DNA test, they're like looking at this picture, sometimes of a great grandfather in his military photo. The resemblance can be generations down.
Yeah, it's true. I have one cousin's daughter who looks so much like her great grandmother. And we just found that picture of the great grandmother. It's like, it could be the same person. It's uncanny. But, 3 generations down.
I know. Like, what happened to all the other grandparents?
I know. And all those people in between,
I know. Where did they go? So we've talked a bit about how for you personally, writing about your experience was a big part of your healing journey. But you also, I know you found community in different NPE groups. And I would like you to share a little bit about what that has looked like for you.
I think that's important because one thing to keep in mind about that is don't settle on just one group. Not every group is for every person. So what I did was I joined a lot of groups, and throughout the years, not just in the beginning, but throughout the years, as new groups have popped up, I've joined a lot of groups. I have found that some of those were absolutely not for me. Now, why? I can't exactly tell you. It was just sometimes a feeling. Sometimes it was the policies that they had about, what you could post and what you couldn't post. Because sometimes some of the things they wouldn't want us to post about are the very things that are the most important to us. So look for groups that fit you and that you feel comfortable with. And understand, too, that people are in different places in this group. Whatever group you're talking in, everybody is in a different place. Somebody is brand new to it. Somebody has been through it for 20 years. They're everywhere. And sometimes you'll say something that you think is perfectly okay, and you'll get attacked for it. Just absolutely, throw you out bath with the baby, and understand that that's just where those people are right now. And they may not understand where you are right now. And sometimes you have to clarify your position. And I don't want people to join a group and have that happen to them and just think they need to leave. They just need to understand we're just all in different places. And not only does the group help you, but you can help other people. And in helping other people, you're also helping yourself. And so that's a huge value to people as they're going through this process, to be able to understand. And, I have one group where every Friday they'll post pictures of, this is my birth certificate father, this is my real father, which one is my real one? You guess, kind of thing. And it seems like a real fun kind of thing to do, but it's also kind of comforting in a way to see that you're not the only one that's dealing with these little simple things too, like, who do I look like? For people who are NPEs who never look like anybody, that's such a big deal, is looking like somebody. And so, just connecting with people on little issues like that is a lot of fun, but it's also really helpful. And even, a lot of the deeper stuff that happens too is super helpful to everybody in the group. So I love those groups. They're very valuable.
I'm glad I asked that question because I feel like that's a really common one, that like finding your community and realizing that there are many out there, and where you are in your journey can determine which one's the right fit for you. And it's okay. Right. It's okay to take a break, pause, step back for a while. It's okay to leave a group if you just realize that's what you need to do for your own mental health. Or
some groups are small and some groups are big, and some people are more comfortable with the small group, and some people are more, comfortable in the big group. So there's all sorts of things for people.
There are. And that's something that is different from 2016. 2016 is when I started doing this work, and there were no groups at the time. And now there are so many, and it's such a comfort for me because now I have resources to share.
Wow.
And at the start of this work, I didn't have any. So
that's true.
Really glad for all of that.
I was thinking about, you had asked me earlier what things had changed for me. One of the things that I think has really come out of this that's been interesting as just an interest of mine is forensic genealogy. And it's kind of surprising how good you can become at that if you take an interest in it when you're someone like me. I've helped.
So can I interrupt to describe forensic genealogy?
Yes.
So this is people using large family trees and DNA tests to solve crimes. So figure out, we have a Jane Doe or a John Doe, an unidentified victim of a crime. We've never been able to figure out who they are. We can do their DNA, find out who they're matching, build out their family tree, and essentially figure out a missing person.
Right.
And then on the flip side, we can also figure out who's been the perpetrator of a crime if they've left their DNA behind. So this has completely changed the world of DNA investigation and crime.
It has, and not just crimes, but I've helped 2 distant family members find out who their parent was through the exact same process, going through the DNA and going through the family trees. And that has
you've been a search angel. Did you know that?
Yes. That has become a real big interest of mine. It's something I really enjoy. And especially now that I'm not working, I think it's something I'm going to delve more into because I just love helping people through that process. And if I can do anything to even give them one step more than they had before, then awesome. Can
I put in a plug for 2 search angel groups?
Yes.
Because if people come to me and they are at the start of their search, I don't have enough time to do the searching myself anymore because it takes a lot of time to build those family trees and figure out DNA connections. So I send people to one of 2 places. One of those places is DNA Angels, and the other is discoverfamily.net. And those are groups of search angels that volunteer their time to help other people solve their family mystery with their DNA test.
I did not know about that. So thank you.
Yes. And there are people that do searches professionally, like professional genetic genealogists. But I encourage people, especially if they've had an NPE discovery or they're adopted or donor conceived, these 2 search angel groups, they want to help you. That's who they want to help.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Thank you for letting me know.
So maybe you could become one of their search angels.
I might just think about doing that.
I recommend them both. It's kind of like support groups. You never know which one is going to be the right fit for you, and it's better to have more than 0.
Right? Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, thank you for this.
Well, thank you for your time and for coming on and talking about your writing experience or having written for the Watershed DNA blog. I know your posts are still getting visitors all these years later.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
So you definitely have paid it forward and continue to pay it forward.
Well, I would love to continue. So you just let me know.
Yeah. Well, thank you again, Maggie. I wish you the best.
You too. Thank you, Brian.
Thank you for listening to this episode of DNA Clarity and Support. This is Brian, founder of Watershed DNA. Check out the show notes for information discussed in today's episode and head over to watersheddna.com to sign up for our email list. Never miss out on notification of new resources available in the world of DNA testing.